This is Scott Spears, and today we remember the First Lady of Comedy, Phyllis Diller, who has passed away at the age of 95. Phyllis was a groundbreaker in the world of stand-up comedy. With her raucous laugh and her fright wigs, she was an American treasure. Phyllis guested on this program over 20 times in the last 10 years and did her last public interview on this program with me less than a month ago, celebrating her 95th birthday. Joining us to remember her is one of her dear friends and a dear friend of this program and a dear lady, wife of a comic genius, Steve Allen, and a great actress in her own right, Jayne Meadows. Jayne, how are you?
Oh, I am still trying to recover from the news. Dear, you took me by storm when you called a little while ago. I have just been out of the hospital for a few days, and I wasn't even watching television. I was trying to catch up on mail and stuff, and when you told me about Phyllis was one of our dearest friends. I tell you, I don't know anybody that I enjoyed being with more than Phyllis, because she was always so, when you say on, usually people think that's an insulting word, you know, but she was always entertaining, always positive. And I hadn't a clue she was older than I.
Jayne, what made her so funny?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Ever since I talked to you a few minutes ago, I thought, you know what? She had the guts to make herself look like a fright wig, and she was a very pretty woman. She wasn't ugly. She wasn't ugly, and she was chic, and her home was one of the most attractive. I used to love to go to parties there. She had the nerve to come on with that hardly a feminine, sweet laugh, you know, that cackle that she did. Everything she did was a caricature of herself if you really knew her. First of all, I'm amazed that not more people realize that she was a concert pianist. You knew that.
And she could paint.
Yes, she was very artistic. Do you know I have in my house 3 portraits that she's done of me?
Is that right?
3 portraits that Phyllis has done of me. One she had a shop in New York and used to sell them. And some of them are, 2 of them are, I wouldn't say caricatures. I mean, they aren't hideous. They're theatrical looking, but one of them is very flattering. And, you know, really and truly, she created what she does. She didn't, she wasn't what you would call an actress who went from one comedy series to another. She created a character. And that character was, people adored it. Just adored it. And, I have been crying since you called me. We had a mutual friend in Jack Lord. You probably knew that she was such a good friend of Jack and Maria Lord's, and I did Hawaii 5-0 several times, and I used to love to go to Hawaii because they were dear friends. And every time they came to Los Angeles, of course, the 6 of us got together. And, the memories. Oh, Steve, Scott.
Yeah.
The memories, I live on my memories.
Jayne, when was the last time you spoke with Phil or saw Phyllis?
Well, I have spoken to her more recently on the phone than seeing her. I haven't seen her, I would say, for a couple of years. But I did make a phone call for a radio show. The gentleman calls me very often when he wants to talk to somebody, and he doesn't have the number. And, of course, I will not give out the numbers of my friends, but I put him in, I call them and tell them he wants to do an interview with them. And in that case, that was recently.
And how was she then?
She was just like people say to me, I don't believe your age because your voice is so forceful. It's my New England high-strung personality. But Phyllis was just as normal and healthy-sounding and laughing, and I never would have, first of all, I didn't know how old she was. I didn't know she was older than I. But no, I would never, she never mentioned not being well. And of course, I still don't know what took her.
The reports that we have is that they've been reported today is that she passed away in her sleep at her home, and she died with a smile on her face.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course she would. Oh, I'm so glad. Of course, that's the only way Phyllis should have ever gone.
Absolutely. And
Absolutely. But she was always laughing and always up and friendly and dear and positive and all the things. You know, now they know a great deal, they say, of why some people live longer than others, and it's not just because they didn't smoke or they, were very athletic. It's because they know that they're positive, that they are very happy people. And when I say to my friends, God bless you, I mean it, because he has blessed me, Scott, for my whole life. I don't ever remember a single period in my life when I wasn't happy. I mean, of course, maybe I didn't get a dress I wanted when I was young, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, after all, Steve and I would have been married now. It's almost 60 years. I haven't added it up recently, but there aren't many of those records here in show business. And every moment of our life together, from the time I first laid eyes on him, I literally saw him and thought to myself, if that man isn't married, he's going to be someday, and to me. And I made up my mind it was going to work. And little did I realize that very night he had decided he wanted to marry me.
And what a great marriage it was.
Yes, it was.
Wonderful.
Oh.
Jayne, what is your favorite memory of Phyllis? I know there are so many, but what pops out in your mind?
Do you know that I actually called, since I talked to you last, several mutual friends. One of them wasn't in, and the other one was dashing for a 2-week vacation. And I knew that Phyllis always went to the parties down the street that Warren, Cowan, and Barbara gave. Wonderful parties. And I couldn't get, Barbara was literally going out the door. And I thought of all those fun parties, and I sat here thinking, did I meet her through, Jack and Marie? And then I realized, no. Steve and I just met her like we meet all of our pals in show business. You either work together, or you meet at a party, or you're in the same group somehow. I cannot say when I really met Phyllis, but I can tell you that we had one laugh fest after another. Hysterical laughing all night long, because when you get Phyllis Diller and Steve Allen, two people who love music and two genius piano players, Phyllis, a trained piano player, and Steve, who never had a lesson in his life, played by ear.
I did not know that.
Oh, Steve couldn't read music. We had a man that when Steve composed, Steve played whatever it was that he had just composed. He would put it on, he would record it. And this man would come in and take it and write it up as sheet music. And when you think of all the hits he had, it is absolutely amazing that the man, he was a poor boy. Somebody asked me recently what did I think was Steve's, the most outstanding thing that I could think of about Steve that the average person wouldn't know. And I said, his tragic childhood. He had the saddest childhood, and that witty, brilliant man. And his mother, you know, was, Jack Benny told me, Bob Hope told me that Belle Montrose was her stage name. And she was, all of them say, the funniest comedian ever in vaudeville. And I hadn't seen her work, but I decided I wanted to, and I took her with me once when I was doing a play, touring in a play. And she was just so thrilled to be around. She loved to have her booze, and she would sit in the bar all day long in the hotel, and then she'd come to the theater at night. And every single town I played, people had some connection to this woman. And I said to Steve, when we first played Vegas, we've got to take your mother. She is funny. And everybody knows she's funny. And Steve was afraid of her drinking. And he said, no, Jane, you don't understand. I can't have her in the act. But I prevailed upon him. And did you know that she stole... We played the Flamingo many times, but the first show we did in Vegas was at the first show. It's the first hotel ever in Vegas, the Flamingo. She not only stole the whole show, Life magazine did a spread on her, and we were held over for 2 weeks. We had signed for 2 weeks, and they recently did a magazine, a writer for a big magazine in Vegas called me a couple of years ago and said that he was doing this. He had been hired to do the history of the Flamingo Hotel, and he said, I was fascinated to read that you and Steve broke every single money record with the business that we did.
Jane, that is wonderful. Jane, on limited time, because I know you have to get rolling here, how are you going to remember Phyllis Diller?
Oh, gosh. Well, first of all, I remember her as one of the dearest, most down-to-earth friends you could possibly have. She was there if you needed a piece of advice or anything, and she was always up, always that laugh on the phone. I just adored her. I don't know anybody that ever said, they certainly didn't to me, a mean thing about Phyllis Diller. Never. They wouldn't dare to me. She was the perfect friend that you want. It's amazing, but I have now at my age suddenly become aware of jealousy, and it's because of my health. I was shocked to find out the jealousy amongst doctors, and I thought that show business was the most jealous business in the world. Well, I got news for you. People, I'm sure, many comedians were jealous of Phyllis, but she didn't have a jealous hair in her head or a mean hair in her head. Everybody loved Phyllis. The public really saw the woman that we all loved. Not a mean thing about her.
Very well put, Jane, and we're going to miss her for a long time.
Oh, gosh. And I have been looking at my list of friends. I go this week to Anita Nyers, 90 years old. Celeste Holm last week was my first friend in the theater, 95. I have to tell you, well, no, I shouldn't. That sounds nasty. But she was a little older than that. And, of course, you know, you told me, Phyllis, 95. And Steve Lawrence called me the other day, and I said to him, do me a favor, give that darling wife of yours a big hug and a kiss for me, and especially tomorrow on her birthday. And suddenly he went, oh, Jane, I had forgotten it was her birthday. How did you remember? And he was a child when he was on The Tonight Show. He would take the subway in from Brooklyn every night to do the show and back home after the show. And Edie, those children, They were the age of my stepchildren, if the truth were known. And then I think of Dolores Hope, who lived to be, and she invited us to all her birthday parties. She lived to be over 100, you know.
Yeah.
Amazing, all these people. And why some of us live longer, I believe, is, well, I think I told you that I say I'm God's favorite because I've outlived every one of my relatives. Everyone. My darling sister would be here now if she hadn't been a chain smoker.
And Jayne, we want you to continue to go on. You know I love you. I hope you feel better soon, and you come back with us many, many more times.
Oh, I would love it, dear.
Thank you, Jayne.
I love all of you that keep this business going so that I can listen in, and I live, as I told you, on memories. God bless you, darling Scots. Scott, you are a kind, dear man, and the public knows it, and I know it, and Steve knew it. So take care of yourself. God bless you, dear.
Stay well, Jayne.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.